Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazadov's chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit Decline series. So in this series we're covering this very nice opening from White's and from Black's perspective, and today we're continuing again with the Queen's Gambit Decline and the so-called Harrwitz Attack. So the Harrwitz Attack we have explained so far in 4 videos. First we had 2 great games with the white pieces, then also some great games with the black pieces. So the Harrwitz Attack, as I explained also in my previous videos, is an opening that is playable for white and for black. So as I mentioned before, nothing wrong happened if you're facing the Harrwitz Attack, or nothing is wrong if you're choosing to play the Harrwitz Attack, because it's a very popular and pragmatic idea in chess to play simply this very sharp opening. So today we're analyzing now our last video in the c5 continuation. As I said, if you want to get a better understanding, please check out my previous videos. So we have analyzed always this move c5. In the continuation of the series, we're analyzing now then the move b6, which is a huge difference. We have to study, I think, every opening really in depth, because there are so many sidelines, but still there are popular sidelines and less popular sidelines. And I think in the continuation of our Harrwitz Attack series, we're covering simply the most aggressive methods and the most popular lines of this opening. So today we have really a beautiful tactical brilliancy played by the former world champion Vladimir Kramnik against Magnus Carlsen in the Harrwitz Attack, with still this continuation c5. Be prepared, this is really one of the wildest games so far that we have covered in our analysis, because you know how Vlad played the game with simply sharp and brilliant tactics. So let's check out now the game. We have now d4 here by Vladimir Kramnik. We have d5 by Magnus, c4, e6, the Queen's Gambit Decline, knight to f3, knight to f6, knight to c3, 3 knights variation, and after bishop to e7, as I said, my recommendation is simply to play the move bishop to f4, which is now the actual Harrwitz Attack move. So in the continuation of the series, as I said, we're covering now the move b6, which will be also a very nice idea of Black's. So this is a great method also to play against the Harrwitz Attack. It has, of course, its different ideas, but still today we're continuing after move Carlsen, e3, now with this idea with the move c5. So as I said, this is now our last video in this particular line. Here after move c5, again I'm repeating myself, my recommendation is simply to proceed here with the move d takes c5. So after bishop to c5, again we're repeating like in the previous videos. Here after move bishop to c5, it's obvious that black sort of lost the tempo, because black has already played with the bishop once by playing the placing the bishop on e7. Now with move bishop to c5, it's sort of a loss of tempo. So that's why you understand now the next couple more moves. If you're watching now this Harrwitz Attack for the first time, again I repeat, here we're delaying from white perspective now simply the bishop's move. We want to play bishop to e2 or bishop to d3. We don't want to play that in the beginning, because if you play that, then of course you face the same thing, d takes c4, and after bishop to c4, as I mentioned many times now so far in the series, you lose also the tempo. So that's why white delays simply again the move bishop, the move by the light square bishop, plays simply different moves. Plays now here a3, queen to c2 is also an opportunity. Here we have knight to c6 again, like in the previous videos, and pardon me, here after move knight to c6, we have now this normal idea, queen to c2, simply maneuvering the queen here on a very natural square. And here after move queen to a5, there are no threats of knight to b4 or bishop to b4. So again I'm repeating, b4 is not an opportunity, because you could face these tactical problems on the a file. So that's why here the natural idea is to move rook to d1. And today we're analyzing again what's in my opinion simply the best line for black. Black, in my opinion, should proceed like this, like Magnus Carlsen did against Vladimir Kramnik, here with move bishop to e7, because we have talked about many ideas. Rook to e8, rook to d8 are of course opportunities, but then white many times maneuvers simply here the knight to d2, can also attack the queen by playing knight to b3. Here the continuation after move bishop to e7, Vladimir Kramnik plays now a different line, bishop to e2. This is now also a line that black can face. As we said, we wanted to delay the bishop's move in the beginning, but now Vladimir Kramnik played simply that move, because the simple other idea that we have analyzed so far was the move knight to d2, and we have analyzed also the great in our great video before with the move knight to d2, a great gameplay by Garry Kasparov, in which Garry Kasparov played first the move e5. You see, by playing the move knight to d2, you're leaving also here your e5 a little bit unprotected. So that's why I think the next move, either you play knight to d2 or you're playing bishop to e2, is basically your choice. It's, I think, a choice of styles, because I think the move knight to d2 is a more positional approach. This move bishop to e2 is a more aggressive move, because now in the continuation pretty much everything is forced, because after bishop to e2, as promised, black will simply take here d takes c4. Here also Magnus played simply the move, waits now again white to lose another tempo and simply play another move with the bishop. Now you see, although the material is equal, but again both sides have lost sort of a tempo by simply recapturing the pawns on the c file. So now comes here, I think, the critical moment of this particular game, and I think you witnessed many times this particular continuation here from white's perspective. Here in the continuation, Magnus played now the move knight to h5, and again there are now several choices. You can play here, I think, the move bishop to d6, simply trading off the dark square bishops, because what we can notice, I think, in this particular position, a huge advantage that white has, I think, is simply the piece activity. All of these pieces are on natural squares. You see, bishop is perfectly fine, this bishop is perfectly fine, knights are centralized. What's not good in black's position, I think, is simply the light square bishop. So that's why we're playing now from this point on against black's position. We're playing really here a bad bishop strategy. What we won't want to do is this light square bishop of black's to come out actively into the game. So that's why I think you understand the next couple of moves by Vladimir Kramnik very, very easily. He has to play now really a fast development, because he wants now include all of the pieces in the attack. He doesn't want to lose time anymore, because if he loses any tempo, then of course the light square bishop is coming into the game and the game becomes more and more equal. So that's why here Vladimir Kramnik introduced to us, I think, a beautiful idea, which seems in the beginning that it's strange, but it's actually one of the best ways simply to proceed and simply go castling here, because here the continuation Magnus Carlsen took knight takes f4, we have e takes f4, and it seems so, as I said, that something went wrong here for Vladimir Kramnik, because he doesn't have any more the bishop pair, he doesn't have this powerful dark square bishop which we have developed in the beginning, but still we have to recognize, I think, this bad bishop on c8. This is not so easy to develop here. This light square bishop to d7 is not an opportunity, because the rook is covering that square, and the problem is now you don't have a rook connection, so it means you cannot compete here with the rooks on the d file. You cannot include both of your rooks into the game. What you would love to do is to play something like rook to d8, maybe then bishop to d7, and then bishop to e8, although this bishop wouldn't be, of course, on the best square. It would be on e8, which is not really the optimal square for the bishop, but still it would be developed, and at least it's aiming here towards the queen side. That would be the actual setup goal for black. Black would love to make this kind of a setup. So as I said, I'm repeating, rook to d8, then bishop to d7, and then bishop to e8, and then I think black has a decent game. But this bishop on e8 would be also a very nice protective piece, because you see many times black could face maybe some light square problems. This knight could come maybe into game on g5, on e5, bishop to d3. We should not underestimate as a threat here from white's perspective. Bishop to d3 is always an opportunity to attack the h7 square, because with the move knight to h4, knight to h5, and taking on f4, black has also left a little bit the defense of the king. Black doesn't have any more the knight as a defender in front of the king, so we have to evaluate the position like this. Still, white is continuing the game with 3 great pieces. The knights are perfectly fine, as we said. Bishop is still good. Still, black is continuing the game only with 2 good minor pieces. This bishop is simply bad. So we should evaluate the position like this. Still, white is slightly better here. So now it's time for black to regroup somehow to get the pieces active. So if you try, you could maybe try here something like a6. In order to develop this light square bishop actively with moves as b5, but that's actually not possible. Still, we can play here the move bishop to d3 or bishop to e2. bishop to e2 is also an opportunity because b5 is not working because of this tactic knight takes b5. If you take a takes b5, then of course queen takes c6, and I think this is simply game over for black. Although the evaluation is not so harsh on blacks, but still losing a pawn in such an early stage of the game is not, of course, something that you wanted to get. So if you try here, instead of this move a6, if you try maybe here something else, if you try to develop the dark square bishop, which could be also a natural idea somehow to activate the pieces further, it comes of course with the direct threat to play something like bishop takes c3, queen to c3, queen to c3, b takes c3. Okay, then of course these two pawns would be isolated, they wouldn't be connected, then of course the f4 would be weakness. Still, this is not so dangerous, I think, because this move can be met with knight to b5 and the direct attack against this d6 weakness, or with a different move, knight to e4 with the same idea. So knight to e4, then of course also trying the move knight to d6. So as I said, it's really hard for black to find the optimal squares on the board. Here after move e takes f4, in the continuation Magnus tried first to defend his light square problems here in front of the king by playing the move g6. So here Vladimir Kramnik fixes the pawns on dark squares, because whenever you give up, like Vladimir Kramnik did here, when you give up the dark square bishop for a knight, then you have to secure, of course, the position with your pawns on that square. So you see now all of these pawns by Vladimir Kramnik are on dark squares. At least he has some kind of a protection of the dark squares on the board. Now the bishop on c4 is actually really the best minor piece on the board. So here in the continuation, as we said, the main issue is this lack of development of the light square bishop, and here Magnus tried this idea, rook to d8. If you try now, as we said, if you try a passive move, let's see a really bad move here from Magnus, for Vladimir Kramnik, king to g2, then Magnus will do simply this, bishop to d7, and even if you try now, bishop to e8 will happen, and I think black has solved now all of the position problems, and here also the engine gives already a slight advantage even for black. So that's something that we're not allowing here. Here after move rook to d8, Vladimir Kramnik plays simply rook to d8. He doesn't want this bishop to get out. After move queen to d8, rook to d1 again, and here Magnus Carlsen simply tried a different maneuver, bishop to d7. Here Magnus is trying finally maybe even to play something like queen to c8, and then finally again this idea bishop to e8. Now comes the actual stunner of the game, because here the best maybe engine move, at least my engine at home, is suggesting this move b4, and still white is slightly better with ideas, of course, knight to b5 or b5, knight to e4, knight to d6, even knight to e5 is an opportunity then to recapture with the pawn, still have a nice grip on dark squares. So that's why many opportunities, even of course a battery could work here with queen to d2, simply continue the pressure on the d file. So great opportunities here for white. But Vladimir Kramnik, a great tactician, a great attacker, really beautiful chess player, played a beautiful idea. He played now the move f5, really wild stuff. He opened the position in front of the king immediately. Here after move f5, we have g takes f5, e5, e takes f5 is simply not an option, because you get queen to b3, and there's no good way to protect anymore your pawn on f7. You would be pretty much forced to play something like this, but still this is working. You see bishop to f7, queen to f7. It's not now time even to take out the queen, although you're getting your piece back after queen to f7, king to f7. Here rook to d7 is actually not the best of continuations, because rook to b8 can be played and nothing's wrong here for black. But actually after move queen to f7, here comes the stunner, queen takes b7. It comes with a double attack against the rook, but also here against the bishop. And even if you try to cover here with move rook to d8, still we can take rook takes d7, rook takes d7, and now queen to d7. We have now really reached a beautiful position for white, I think, with opportunities to again get the knight somehow here on d5. Here we have this 2 versus 1 situation on the queen side, so this is now obviously a completely winning endgame here for white. Although probably you have to struggle here for a win, but here the engine, for instance, gives already 3.5 evaluation for white. So that's why after move f5 the game becomes really wild. Here Magnus takes, g takes f5, but now you see the king is a little bit naked, and as we said in the beginning, beginning. Knight to h5, knight to f4. We're lacking now of defenders here in front of the king. The knight is not there anymore. We would love, of course, to have now a knight in front of black's king, but now here Vladimir Kramnik sneaks in with queen to d2, double attack, of course, against the queen, against the bishop, and also is trying to get the queen here on h6. So here Magnus played queen to b6 because here taking is not an option. Queen takes d7 is not an option because you get rook to d8 and suddenly the queen is trapped. So that's why after move queen to b6, here in the continuation Vladimir Kramnik played queen to h6. Really already a dangerous position for Magnus Carlsen. If you think about this move, queen takes b2, it's not working because of this tactic. Knight to g5, immediate checkmate threat on queen to h7, and then queen to f7 is now the serious threat. You would be forced here to play bishop to g5, and then of course we can take queen to g5, and still you have to move the king. King to h8 is not working because here queen to f6, king to g8, and again we can, I think, simply take, and here you could lose here the battle simply on f7. So that's why you would be forced, I think, after this move to play king to f8, but now nothing dramatically changes. Here we have queen to f6. We're protecting first our knight, and still this bishop is hanging. If you try, for instance, to protect the bishop, then you get this one, queen to h8, king to e7, and again beautiful tactic. Knight to d5, discover the attack here with the check, and the queen is hanging. It's game over. So really wild stuff what Vladimir Kramnik has prepared here. Beautiful tactics. After move queen to b6, as at queen to h6, here in the continuation Magnus Carlsen tried this idea, bishop to e8. Here we have now a new move, knight to g5, again with this direct threat against this h7. It forces now Magnus Carlsen to play bishop to g5. We have queen to g5, we have king to f8, and queen to h6, a couple of checks, and here Vladimir Kramnik plays now a very active move, king to d6. And okay, you see Magnus is a really great defensive player, and he really sees beautiful counterplay tactics, but here he made really a huge blunder. He can play whatever he likes. He can play queen to c5, but actually he played the worst move. He played the move queen to c7. In this particular position the evaluation is about equal, so chances for both sides. You see Magnus Carlsen is up a pawn, but has of course this bad bishop on e8. Here after move rook to d6, Magnus Carlsen played a huge blunder. He played queen to c7, and now we have queen to h6. We have now a king to e7, queen to h4. You cannot take, that's the main issue, because you get knight to b5. That's now the huge difference between the move queen to b6 and queen to c7, pardon me, and queen to c5. This fork would always work, so that's why here it's game over. So you cannot take out the rook. Here in the continuation Magnus probably thought, okay, I messed up the position, I hope now for a draw, but here Vladimir Kramnik played some perpetuals. If you try here after move king to g8, if you try to play now this move, again it's not so good. Even rook to e6 is now opportunity, because after f takes e6, bishop to e6, if you try to cover with the bishop, then this is a monster move. Knight to d5, that's the main issue here, because the queen is hanging, and now knight to f6 is basically unpreventable. This could be again game over. So that's why here again king to e7 played by Magnus. We have knight to b5 attacking the queen. We have queen to a5, and now simple b4 here by Magnus Carlsen. We have knight takes b4, rook to e6. Look at this tactic that Vladimir Kramnik has prepared. Really beautiful game here. F takes e6, queen to e6, and now king to d8. If you try here king to f8, it's not so good, because you get simply queen to f6, and now it's basically checkmate. You can only cover with the bishop, and here queen to f7 is game over. So here in the continuation after queen to e6, Magnus tried king to d8. We have now a new check. You have only one square. We have king to c8, and now queen to f5. Here if you try of course to cover with the bishop, then you get this one, knight to d6, discover attack. Again the queen is hanging. Really wild stuff. So here after move queen to f5, we have king to d8 again. We have queen to f6, king to c8, and here after a takes b4 in this position, actually Magnus Carlsen resigned. What's the issue of this position? The rook is of course out of game. Here if you try even to cover with queen to d8, then you get this one, bishop to e6. You have to cover with the bishop, then we can play a new check. You have to retreat with takes again a new check, you have to cover, and now with queen to e5 you can only cover with the queen one more time, and it's here on c7 a checkmate. So really beautiful game. We have seen beautiful tactics. I think Magnus Carlsen could have defended his position. It's really important to point that out, that this attack with f5 was a slight inaccuracy. Let's go back here by Vladimir Kramnik. The evaluation is now about equal, but there are better lines. As we said, b4 is an opportunity, simply building maybe here queen and rook battery. Knight to e5 is an opportunity as a long-term plan. So as I said, what the most important thing I think about this video is that in this particular continuation, after the move knight to h5, you shouldn't be so worried, I think, about this bishop, because first we have to understand that this knight is very important as a defensive piece here around the square h7. Now bishop to d3 is working, so here in my opinion, and like Vladimir Kramnik played, the best continuation is simply to castle kingside and secure the king and stay active in the game with this light square bishop, building this queen and bishop battery, including of course the knights towards the center into the game. So really beautiful elements that you can play here from white's perspective. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I hope that you realize this most important strategical and tactical ideas of this particular line. So as I said, this is now our last video in the Harrwitz attack, in the continuation here with the move c5. We're continuing now, instead of this move c5, here the continuation b6, which is now a huge difference. I think many of you have trouble, if you're maybe a d4 player, if you're Queen's Gambit declined player, many of you have trouble, I think, to beat this particular line, because it's a more positional line. It's not so tactical, but it has beautiful elements for both sides again. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to study the Queen's Gambit decline more, here's the link of our whole series with some other games that we have analyzed before. And if you have trouble maybe to play as black, check out my hyper accelerated ranked Sicilian defense series as good response to e4, and my Nimzo Indian defense series as good response to d4. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.